Hi. If you are watching, this is the first lesson for May 2024. Okay. I don't know why, but I seem to be on a little bit of a dragon kick. I'm really enjoying this genre of fantasy. So we're going to start with the story, an older story, Dragonfire, by Marieke Pulat. Pretty short story, kind of a innocent message. Bebop was a little dragon with orange scales. He'd been living on Gray Mountain with his mother since he'd been born. That was already nearly 100 years ago. 100 years old, that's when the age of understanding begins for dragons. Bebop was finally going to learn how to breathe fire. He could not wait for this moment to arrive. At last, his birthday came. Bebop woke up excited, went singing into the kitchen. His mother jumped and hid something behind her back. Bebop, I didn't hear you. Happy birthday, darling. She put a cloth over what she had been holding and came over to him and gave him a kiss on his forehead. What do you fancy eating? He wanted grilled lamb. She smiled. That was his favorite snack. While she was busy cooking, Bebop snuck behind her and went to lift the cloth. He was sure he was going to find the guide to breathing fire. He was disappointed to find a book on flying. Bebop, that's for tonight, cried his mother. But that's not what I wanted, cried back the little dragon. His mother's expression changed. She frowned, then she sighed and sat down. She asked Bebop to do the same thing, but he was too worked up to do as she'd said. You wanted so much to breathe fire that I've never known how to tell you that your father was a giant lizard. What does that mean? It means you'll never be able to breathe fire. Never be able to breathe fire? Bebop's heart stopped beating and then started pounding hard. He could not believe what he was hearing. It was impossible. This is what he'd always dreamed of. It doesn't mean you won't be a proper dragon. You're the best flyer now, said his mother. But you have to accept the fact that you won't be able to breathe fire. I'm really sorry, Bebop. It's not fair, shouted the little dragon, putting his head between his paws. He'd never felt so terrible. He grabbed his backpack and went out, slamming the door. Already he could hear how the kids at school would make fun of him when they found out he was never going to breathe fire. At the end of the road, his school was on the right, and the way out of the village was on the left. He preferred to leave the village behind. When he got to the edge of the village, he unfurled his wings and took off. He'd never flown so far from home on his own before. He felt a wave of pride and freedom as he flew on and went higher and higher. The village was now just a dot on Gray Mountain, and soon even Gray Mountain disappeared. At the same time, Red Mountain appeared on the horizon. It's called that because of the boiling red lava that bursts out whenever the mountain becomes angry. At this point, Bebop had a crazy idea. If his mother didn't want to teach him to breathe fire, then the Red Mountain would have to do it. He swerved off in that direction. Bebop had been flying for several hours. Red Mountain was getting bigger. It was rumbling loudly. All the other animals were running in the opposite direction, but Bebop kept getting closer and closer until he could touch it. The little dragon wanted to get right up to the top, so he flew up to the crater where smoke was billowing out. Deep inside the mountain, lava was beginning to boil and spill over. But Bebop wanted to get even closer. He wanted to understand what was going on so that he could do it too. How on earth could he make fire in his throat? Bebop dropped down inside the crater. He was hovering below the surface when the lava began to bubble and flow. Mountain, he shouted, mountain, tell me how you do it. He couldn't finish his sentence. A violent explosion sent a rock flying from the side that hit him and wounded his left leg. He lost his balance, cried out, and only just managed to grip onto the crater's edge. Pain swept through his wing. It must have been broken. Now it was impossible for him to fly. He started to panic as he felt the lava rising and getting nearer and nearer to his trembling legs. Suddenly, cool air brushed his shoulders. He lifted his eyes and saw his mother. Don't move. I'm getting you out of here, she shouted. She positioned her powerful claws around his body and unhooked them from the wall. Then she rose swiftly into the air with him up and out of the crater. Several dragons from the village were out there flying around Red Mountain. They'd come with his mother to help her find him. After seeing she was safely carrying her son, all the other dragons set off on their journey home together. The group was only a few hundred yards from Red Mountain when the volcano exploded. Lava poured out in all directions. Burning rocks flew into the air. The dragons aimed their flames at the missiles to break them up before they could reach them. They were safe. 3 hours later, they touched down back home. The dragons all turned to Bebop. Luckily, the birds told us which way you've gone. We almost arrived too late. Why on earth did you go down into the crater? I wanted to learn how to breathe fire like the mountain, said Bebop, dusting himself off. The dragon stared at him, eyes wide. Your son is extremely foolish, said one of the dragons to Bebop's mother. He puts you both in great danger, added another dragon. Bebop was on the edge of tears. He felt guilty about putting his mother's life in danger. Please stop, said Bebop's mother. Can't you see he's feeling bad enough about this? Personally, what I'm seeing is a little dragon who showed great determination and courage. The dragons all stopped talking, and she came up to her son. I'm so sorry that I never told you about your dad. If you'd known the truth, you would never have tried to do something like that. I won't ever lie to you again. Bebop smiled and hugged his mother hard with his good wing. Then his stomach gurgled loudly, and she laughed. Come on, let's go home. Your grilled lamb is waiting for you. Okay, so I hope that you followed along in the story. I'm going to go through some of the story elements. And as I go through the story elements, I'm looking for the picture I posted on my, usually I take a picture of, nope, I didn't take a picture of it. So really what we're talking about are dreams. That's what we're talking about from this story today. And not the dreams like that you have at night, but dreams as in something that you foresee, a goal that you want to reach in the future, foreseeable future or down the road. And a dream has to be within our grasp, right? So this story brings up a really kind of compelling notion, which is, we're told, anything is possible. If you dream it, you can achieve it. And okay, within limits. So let's talk about Bebop. He could never breathe fire. That was not a talent, a gift that he possessed. And that kind of brings up the idea, are dreams really possible? And I'm not a dream killer when I say this, but what I want to say is, I think you have to have the ability when you go after that dream. For example, hypothetically, let's say you want to be a musician, then you probably need to be able to play music, read music. If you want to be a singer, you can't be tone deaf, right? That's not a realistic dream. So I do think what this story brings up is the dream has to be potentially in our grasp, right? So we talked about that in class. The other thing we talked about that Bebop did was he took matters into his own hands, which is very relatable. We as humans, that's a very human quality. When things don't go our way, we take matters into our own hands. And of course, we think of Bebop, and even though he's 100 years old, it talks about this age of understanding. In human years, the age of understanding in most religions is 12 or 13. This is when psychologists also believe that children develop ethical reasoning, maturity, also hormonally, physically, when you are no longer a child, not quite an adult. So, a young man, a young woman, and I think you really become more aware of what's going on in the world around you. So let's go through our story elements today. We have Bebop, main character, the only one named, his mother, and some peripheral dragons. You can't have a story without a problem. Bebop wants to breathe fire. and discovers he can't. He doesn't possess the ability. Now his mother says, "You're a great flyer. That is a gift that you have." So when he sees the book on flying, he wanted a book on breathing fire, but his mom is doing something really important here. Because parents, we as your mom and dad know where your talents lie. We know what your gifts are. We know because we've put you in a lot of activities for you to discover what you're good at, what you're not good at, and it's important to know that. So this is his dream. This is his vision. This is everything he's ever wanted, and he's told he can't have it. So at the beginning, so the plot, remember we have the 5, and I like the 5. We start with the beginning, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution. So the plot is 5 parts. So Bebop and his mother, the beginning, are about to celebrate his birthday. He's been alive for 100 years. The age of understanding begins for dragons. Bebop's mother has selected a birthday gift for him about flying, which disappoints him because he wants to be able to breathe fire. So what is the climax of the story? What is the turning point in this story? So you really can't, it's easy to know the beginning. It's kind of easy to know the ending, right? And the resolution was at the end of the story, the dragons who helped Bebop's mother find him and tell him how foolish he is for running away, then go down to the crater. They point out he not just put himself in danger, he put his mother in danger. So we know the beginning, we know the end. So you have to identify the climax in the story, the turning point in the story. Well, when did that happen? When did everything go south? The moment he didn't go to school, the moment he turned in the other direction, he ran away. He ran away for 3 hours. Imagine how your parents would feel if you got mad and left for 3 hours. I'm guessing that wouldn't go well in your house. So the rising action is Bebop's mother told him, your dad's a giant lizard. You're never going to have the ability to breathe fire. He shouts, it's unfair. It's all he ever dreamed of. So basically, she killed his dream. So obviously the climax, he decides to fly away. I think initially to blow off steam, then he heads, he's heading, flying, and then he sees Red Mountain, which would have been within his visual. And then he keeps flying further. And obviously the falling action between the ending and the climax, he flies into the crater, believing the Red Mountain can teach him how to breathe fire, and gets a little too close to the lava, which breaks his wing. And then he realizes he's too injured to fly. And then his mother suddenly flies in. Okay, so where does this take place? We've got Gray Mountain, then Red Mountain. Really not creative names, but they do the job. The setting is unknown. Dragon, medieval times, I don't know. Bebop wanted to breathe fire, was not given the ability to do so, and because of this, he sought out a way to learn how to breathe fire on his own. Bebop chose to do this at great peril, right? First of all, he ran away. Second of all, he put himself in danger. Then he put his mom in danger. And at the end of the story, we get the sense that Bebop was able to let go of his dream. Because when he took matters into his own hands, he made the situation worse, which is ironic because we do the same thing. So what's great about the story, and the reason I pick certain stories for my students, is there's always a human element that's relatable. Human nature doesn't change. We go back and read fables and fairy tales, stories that are thousands of years old, and we can relate to the human condition because it doesn't change. Human behavior doesn't change. So what's our theme here? What's the message? I think it's pretty clear. When dreams are crushed, just like his were crushed, it's important to come to terms with the fact that they one of two things, they may not be meant to be, right? Right? And maybe you have to move on to something else, right? I told this story in class that my daughter, my husband and I would put our kids in a lot of different things, and we put our daughter in soccer. And she would run down the field, with all the other players, nowhere near the ball. And my husband and I finally were like, can you explain to us why you're not trying to kick the ball in the goal? And she said, well, I'm pretending to be a horse. Okay, so come on. We have a rule in our house. You sign up for something, you finish it. We finished the season of soccer. We didn't sign up again. We put her in equestrian, right? We put her in horse riding lessons, which, by the way, went a lot better. Okay, so we have a really interesting theme here. So we're going to take that into the outline that you have. So you'll notice, and I'm at the outline, we're going to start from the middle. I'm going to give a real life application here. As a child matures and becomes older, they begin to understand how even if they have a dream they want to achieve, it may take more effort on their part to achieve it. So one of two things happens when we have a dream. Number one, if it could be within reach. I want to be a doctor someday, right? That could be within your reach. If you're smart, you apply yourself. That's going to take a lot of hard work. And I have a lot of students who've done that. Okay, so I want to give you a story of someone, I made it up, who fits this kind of situation. Kylie always imagined herself performing on a stage. When she played the role of someone else, like a butterfly, she metamorphosized into another character. The problem was every time she auditioned for a role, her stage fright would often overwhelm her. She would memorize her lines and know exactly how and when to speak, but as soon as she saw faces watching her, everything went blank in her head. This is exactly what happened to Kylie when she auditioned for the school play. Kylie babbled and flubbed her lines, the same lines she spoke perfectly while practicing in front of the mirror at home. Mrs. Sawyer, her theater instructor, explained to Kylie if she could not control her nerves, she would be unable to cast her. Kylie hoped she would still be cast in the play, so waited days to see if she was going to be chosen for any role. When the cast list was finally posted at the end of the week, Kylie was devastated when she saw her name was selected for backstage helper. This was the moment Kylie decided to take matters into her own hands. So just like in the story, I'm having my fictional character take matters into her own hands, but this time for good. Not like Bebop did in the story, but this time for good. That summer, she decided she was done with being afraid of and signed up for a speech course, thinking if she could overcome her fears of speaking on a stage in front of people, she could realize her dreams of performing in front of an audience. It didn't happen overnight, but Kylie worked for 7 weeks, giving speech after speech in front of intimidating crowds. And even though she still felt nervous, with enough practice, Kylie learned how to use her nerves to better her performance. The next school year, when she auditioned for the play, she was cast as the lead. So whatever obstacles a child faces, I'm at the end sentence, there are times when they must be more persistent to achieve their goals. So what I did was I made up a story. Now remember, a story has your 5 W's. It has a character, Kylie, the what, who, what, where, when, why. The what was she had a problem. So notice I said the problem right away, stage fright. What a great topic. What a relatable topic. Most of us hate speaking in front of people, or even if you don't hate it, it's nerve-wracking. It makes you anxious. You start to panic or get butterflies in your stomach. Okay, so I just made up the story. That's the same thing you're going to do. So you want your character, and please name them, and always use fictitious names. Don't name real people. You want to name them, and you want to give them a problem. But they do have a talent. Like, she does have a talent. I think she is a good actress. She's a great performer. The only problem she had was stage fright, which that's a big problem if you're a performer. And if you can overcome that, then yes, you can realize your dream. Okay, the second part of the paragraph, I want you to give me a real life application that's a little bit different. And this is when a dream is impossible. And let me just give you a really broad and easy topic. Sports. What's the number one thing that ends a sports career? Injury, right? When collegiate athletes, so those are athletes that get college scholarships, they go on to college. 6% of those college athletes go on to play professional sports. That's a pretty low statistic, right? And the reason is, there's stress on the body, or there are other better players. So that's a very relatable topic. Music would be a very relatable topic. Singing, if it's not your gift, right? Athletics, maybe you're not athletic at all, right? Okay, so I'm gonna give you the story I've given you for this one. Unfortunately, if a child dreams big, the fulfillment of it may not be possible. So they will have to pursue other passions. So this is Jay. Jay was passionate about playing basketball. He would practice making three-point shots, shooting free throws while swishing them in the hoop. Problem was, Jay had suffered a serious injury to his left leg, which made him unable to sprint down the court as fast as he needed to keep up with the other players. The coach of his middle school basketball team allowed him to play on the team, but only put him in the game for short periods of time when their team was significantly ahead of the opposing team. Jay noticed how his coach and teammates treated him as if he was a liability. And a liability just means, he's kind of a bench warmer. Yeah, he wasn't helpful. He was actually harmful. This was not the way he wanted to represent his team. And after a heart-to-heart talk with his parents, Jay decided that this season of basketball would be his last season. No matter how much he loved the game, he was simply unable to physically play at the same level of his classmates. Jay decided he would put his time and effort into his other hobby, playing chess. Jay was surprised how quickly he rose up in the ranks of the best players in his school district. He even qualified for a regional competition. From time to time, Jay still enjoyed shooting hoops with his friends, but played recreationally for fun. Jay was able to let go of his dream of playing basketball, knowing his injury would always hold him back. Over time, playing chess began to fill the void and allowed him to enjoy committing in a way that he could lead his team to victory. So there are circumstances or hurdles placed in a child's path which make it unrealistic for them to pursue a passion. So they should channel their dreams and efforts in a new direction. So I'm not a dream killer, and I'm not saying you can't. I think that your dream has to be realistic. And I think your dream has to be something you're talented at doing. Because can you imagine wasting your time and energy on something that's never going to fulfill you, that's never going to take you to the top where you want to be? That's kind of a waste of time, right? So you'll notice your lead, easy peasy. It's a summary. And you should be able to do the summary because I gave you the story elements. Who, what, where, when, why. So that's an easy peasy one. So what we're going to prove in your thesis, the dragon in the story reacted similarly to how children respond today when they're faced with an obstacle preventing them from achieving their dream. And they have to figure out how to work harder or pursue a different passion. Restated thesis, just like the character Bebop in the story, children often believe any dream in life is possible to achieve. But they soon discover realizing a dream takes effort, and sometimes it's impossible for whatever reason, which is when they need to be focused elsewhere. So the story presents an important lesson for children today who may strive to realize a dream, which may not be within their grasp. Bebop's disappointment caused him to take matters into his own hands. He flew away from home, attempting to find some way to learn how to breathe fire, and in doing so, placed himself in danger. Luckily, his mother searched for him and rescued him just in time. Several other dragons who came to help his mother chastised Bebop for his foolish behavior. He was already injured, feeling sorry for himself, and they only made him feel worse. In the end, his mother recognized he was still a child who had to learn his personal limitations. And this is why his mother wasn't so hard on him at the end of the story. Kids today, you watching this video, will face similar challenges like Bebop. Children might want to pursue a dream and recognize it will not be easy, or the dream may simply be too far out of their reach or unattainable, if you will. Okay. So this is just one of those stories that is a life lesson. And please know that I do think anything is possible. I do think you can achieve your dreams, but I do think you have to understand your dream has to be something realistic that fits you and your talents and your gifts. And then if you put your time and effort into those dreams, then I think it's very, very possible. Okay, so this concludes May lesson 1. Thank you for watching. Please submit. If you're watching the video, you're probably 2 weeks late. So please submit as soon as possible and don't wait too long. Have a great week.